Hi, this is Gary with GEEZBEEZ, and today we're going to get out in the bee yard and we're going to take off the Apivar strips, and we're going to be feeding Hive Alive pollen patties, and we're going to be feeding more one-to-one sugar water. And this is my wife Deanna with me today, and we've been married almost 40 years, so I just wanted to introduce her to you, and she wanted to ask me some questions.
Usually you guys don't see me. I'm on the other side of the camera. But I'm going to start off with telling you, Gary, I love this butter yellow
Oh, yeah.
shirt that you're wearing today. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, my son told me about a t-shirt radio station that uses the bee, and it's WBEZ in Chicago. I don't know if you can see the Chicago there. He lives in Chicago with his wife and his new baby, our only grandchild. So
Shout out to Owen.
yeah. So I've got this t-shirt, and I'm going to start wearing some t-shirts. I really like wearing t-shirts that have bees on them. So he told me about it, and we got one. So I'm going to start wearing them in my videos.
As my bee earrings, Gary got me for my birthday yesterday. So, and also congratulations on reaching 200 viewers on your YouTube channel.
Yeah,
It's quite an accomplishment.
that was an accomplishment. We haven't been on a long time, and I really appreciate you viewers and appreciate everything and being on, and I hope that it helps you and we can help each other in our beekeeping progress.
So it's Saturday morning and time for our weekly video. So what are we going to be doing today?
Well, we're going to be taking off Apivar strips is the first thing that we're going to be doing. And we'll be doing the Hive Alive pollen patties. We'll be feeding more of those. And we'll be doing the 1-to-1 sugar water.
So on those Apivar strips, what is that for? Why do we do that?
Well, they're a polymer strip, and we do that to help bring the mite levels down, hopefully kill all the mites. It does say that 96 to 99% of the mites it will kill in a 6-week period. So that's why we put them on, is to get the mite levels down going into winter, to keep the viruses down and to keep them healthy, you know, to where they're not taking fat off of the winter bees so that they can survive the winter. And so that's why we use the Apivar strips.
And then I know the Hive Alive pollen patties. You said that we do those because this time of year we just finished our honey crop, and going into fall, you said there wasn't a lot of natural pollen sources, and so we supplement it. But what you also told me something about, like, what you have to be careful for on feeding the pollen patties.
The pollen patties come in 1 pound. They're a 1-pound patty. And basically the reason we use them is because when you go into a dearth, there just isn't any pollen and there isn't any food available for the brood. And so they slow their brood production down. So if you can feed the pollen patties and get that brood production up, then especially this time of year, going in winter, we just did late splits, which we normally don't do late splits. We do spring splits, but this year we did some late splits. So we need to get those numbers up, and in order to do that, we've got to get them some pollen coming in, and we also feed our 1-to-1 sugar water at the same time.
So I guess it's kind of a catch-22. You need to feed them the pollen to get the brood numbers up, but yet you've got to be careful because that also can, I guess, incentivize your hive beetles to come in.
Yes, you want to take those, and what I do is I make about a quarter of a pound per hive depending on the strength of your hive. You can go a half pound with bigger hives. I generally do a quarter of a pound and just feed them more often. And that's usually what they can handle. They'll eat in about 4 to 5 days. And that'll keep those hive beetles from hatching out and laying their eggs in it. They'll eat it fast enough. And I haven't had a problem doing that. Now last year I would put whole pound patties on, and they would lay eggs in there, and the larvae would come out, and I never had any real slime outs. They can get really bad. If you'll check on them often enough, pull those out of there, throw them away, get some fresh on. But if you do the quarter pound, they generally take that in about 4 to 5 days, and I haven't had that problem this year. So that's what I do with that to keep the short hive beetles numbers down. And you can also put there's also other ways of keeping the beetles down. But I found this year I haven't had a lot of beetles, and I haven't had a lot of eggs laid. I've had like one patty, and it was a really small hive that wasn't taking it very fast. So I threw it out, put another one on, and hopefully they've built up. We'll see today. When you put these Apivar strips on, you're going to want to take your honey, all the honey that you're going to want to take for human consumption, off. And so we've done that. We had our honey harvest. We could have got some fall flow honey, and so I tried to put those on right away when I harvested, and so that we can maybe go in, if we do have a fall flow, we could get some fall flow honey. I generally leave the fall flow honey on for them anyway, because we usually don't have a huge fall flow here. And that's kind of what if you really wait, some people wait till about September to pull their honey off, which you may get a little bit more honey that way, but you've also got really high mite infestation by that time. So if you can put those on around August, it tends to knock those infestation numbers down going into winter. And then what I do is wait till they get pretty broodless, November, December area, and I'll hit them with oxalic acid vapor. And you know, if they're broodless, that oxalic acid will really knock the numbers way down. So by the time you put your I put my Apivar on in August, we're taking it off here in September, 6 weeks later. You can run it an extra week. If you had a really high infestation rate, you can run it 53 days instead of 42 days. I run it to 42 days. We didn't have a real high infestation rate. We did have some this year. And so we'll be doing some testing afterwards, kind of see, here in a week or two, kind of see where we're at as far as how the Apivar strips did and how much they knocked the levels down. But then you can hit them again in December, and I'll generally hit them just, if it's really a good broodless, I'll hit them one time. If I've got just a little bit of brood, then I'll do a series of oxalic acid treatments. But if you've got broodless, oxalic acid works really well. The good thing about the Apivar strips is that they do work really well on the brood. And so they actually get in the brood and take some of kill some of the mites that are in the brood, versus your oxalic acid only does it on the bees that are on the mites that are on the bees themselves. As they fly around, it will take care of those. So a little bit different treatment. That's why I use the Apivar, and then I can use the oxalic acid later. So yeah, as far as the honey goes, the honey's been pulled off. We don't have any honey on for human consumption than when we use the Apivar strips. So covering the one-to-one on the sugar feed, we put 1 part honey, or I'm sorry, 1 part sugar to 1 part water. I do put just a little bit of vinegar in, maybe just like a teaspoon per gallon, and just to change the pH of the water to keep the mold down. I use Boardman feeders, which are the jar feeders. Some people, you know, there's lots of different feeders out there. I like them because I can tell how much they're taking and how quick they're taking it. And you know, they'll take a quart jar per day, some of them, some of the bigger hives. So, you know, it kind of keep it going. The reason we want to use the sugar water is it reflects nectar, and they don't have any nectar coming in. So if the queen feels like she has that nectar coming in, that pollen coming in, she's going to lay a lot more brood this time of year, and you're going to get those numbers up to try to help heat the hive. You'll have a large number of bees going into winter to help heat the hive, and just more bees coming out and in the spring. So if you want to do spring splits, you can feed up right there at, at the beginning of spring and get those numbers up and do those spring splits. So it mimics your nectar flow, and it also helps increase activity, which is a good thing for your Apivar strips, because they're rubbing up against those Apivar strips that you're using 2 of those strips, and you want to put those strips right next to the brood so that they'll rub up against that and spread that around in there. And if you have propolis built up on, you need to check your Apivar strips, your plastic strips that you hung down there. You need to check those every once in a while and scrape those off to reactivate some of that. If you have a lot of propolis build up on them, sometimes they'll propolize them to the frame. So that helps release that agent some too. But yeah, getting back to the nectar flow, and it also just increases their activity this time of year, increases their brood, increases their number, and that's why we're feeding them the pollen patties and the nectar or the sugar water, so that they will increase those numbers for the winter bees that are going to go through all the way through winter, because you're losing your spring bees, and you're going to start losing spring bees every day. So we really want to replace those numbers, and we want to up those numbers as much as possible, and that's why we feed, because it's shown that you'll get about 30% more brood production and just more numbers period on your brood. So we were at about probably a frame, maybe 2 frames of brood the last time we checked. And so we'll check today, and we'll see kind of how it goes, and if this is building up some more brood for us. We'll show you in the video. Thank you.
All right. Well, it's not going to get any cooler today. So let's go suit up and go get to work.
Okay. Thanks.
Bye.
Okay, I'm suited up and ready to go. We're going to check on some of these small splits that we did coming out and kind of see if they're growing a little bit, what they've got as far as brood goes. And this is our Hive Alive pollen patties that we ordered from Hilco. And there's 10 1-pound packages in each box. We've got a couple of boxes. We will take off the Apivar strips and kind of evaluate them to see. Looks like there are quite a few bees in there. But we'll look at their brood and see kind of how they're doing. Looks like they're brooding up pretty good. Lots of milk brood, lots of eggs. this side. Same here. A little bit of pollen in there. You can see some orange pollen, see a lot of eggs, see a lot of milk brood. And this is all drawn out comb. They've drawn that out since. So that 1-to-1 is helping them draw out some frames. They're drawing that out. This is that Premier Foundation that I bought at the Hive Life Conference last year. So they're drawing all that out nicely. They've got 2 good brood frames. They've drawn out 2 frames other than the brood frames. So looks like they're doing okay. So we're going to center their frames up. We're going to put a pollen patty on. Like I say, a smaller split like this, I'm just doing 1/4. The bigger ones, I'll do a 1/2. And you'll just have to come in about 4 or 5 days and do it again. So we can keep those hive beetles from laying eggs in. So I just score it. This is the side that I put down that has the holes in it so they can eat them. This side will keep the hive beetles from laying. Just clear you a spot. Smoke the bees out of the way so we don't get them stuck in there. Put that on. And they're all ready. We'll come back and feed our 1-to-1 sugar water when we're all done. So I got in the production yard, got in some of these bigger hives. So a lot more bees. As you can tell, this is a really full box of bees. A little rambunctious today. But it looks like they've really built up nice with these pollen patties. Got brood on so far on 2. Let's keep checking, see how far they went. There's another one. Some more. So that's 4. And they're pretty well low on stores, so we'll need to be feeding them up. So that's kind of the way the yard will pretty well go. All those splits are probably about the same size. They were all about the same size when I made them. And these definitely had a lot more field force out. And those splits were done with a couple of frames.
So they're hanging in there, putting on some fresh wax onto their frames. They're growing their frames out. So hopefully we can get the pollen patties on, the feed on them. They'll fill those with brood, and we'll have a couple more frames of brood, probably have about 4 frames in them. And that'll hatch out, and we'll have a large number going into winter, and that's what we're after. Wow, look at that, dude. This is that problem hive. I'll put that other nuke in. They're doing wonderful. Got about 5 frames now. It was just 2 weeks ago. Or what was it? A couple weeks ago we made that video. They're doing great. I appreciate it. Like and subscribe, and I hope you're doing well. Thank you.